Hi everyone, I'm Kathryn Carlisle, the Senior Managing Director of the Blockchain Center of Excellence. I'd like to welcome you back to our discussions about empathy and inclusion for scaling blockchains. First, I want to congratulate Ron Piwetz for winning the last round of our Two Truths and a Lie blockchain trivia. We'll have another chance at the end of this session. But first, I want to give us a little bit of context and introduce our topic. We often talk about trust and cooperation is a vital part in our discussions for blockchain technology. One element we don't discuss as much in the importance of designing a distributed network are ideas like empathy and inclusion. Many in our audience here today are leaders within their organizations and founders of their own company or projects, and it's the duty of leadership to ensure these concepts are incorporated. So today I have two extraordinary leaders with us today, and I'd like to welcome Elizabeth Kabaghe and Sandra Rowe to the stage so we can do some quick introductions. Hi, ladies. So Elizabeth Kabaghe has been working in international economic and community development for over the last decade and is currently the innovations and new initiatives lead at Heifer Project International, based in Malawi. She supports scaling innovations and contributes towards accelerating Heifer's goal of helping 10 million families out of poverty and have living incomes by 2030. She focuses on program design and piloting emerging technologies such as blockchain, artificial intelligence, and solar technologies. She was previously awarded the Fellowship of African Women in Agriculture and Research Development, and it serves on the Social Impact Committee for the Diem Association, previously Libra. Sandra is a proponent for human-centric tech. She left a career in derivatives, investment banking, and currency markets to focus on emerging technologies, particularly in financial systems, that promote sustainability, access, and resiliency. She's an early investor in and advocate of crypto and digital assets. Sandra is currently the CEO of the Global Blockchain Business Council, or the GBBC, a Swiss-based nonprofit consisting of over 270 institutional members. Sandra is an angel investor of startups and serves as a board member, advisor, keynote, and co-founder for startups, nonprofits, and key blockchain industry networks. Welcome today, and thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So for my first question, I want you both to tell us more about the mission of your business and nonprofit organization and how you're working to achieve that mission, and then where do blockchains fit in all of this? Elizabeth, do you want to kick us off?
Yes, hello everyone. It's a great opportunity to be here. Heifer Project International's mission is to end poverty and hunger around the globe while caring for the earth and its resources. In alignment with the SDGs, our 2030 agenda is to support 10 million families get to a living income. And so for this, we are one of the strategies that we embarked on is a strategy which we call Accelerate, which also includes the deployment of technology, because we realize that technology is needed to help us accelerate the speed at which we address some of the bottlenecks that the communities that we're working with, especially the farmers, are facing. And so that's where blockchain and the other different technologies come in. We're also interested in bridging the digital divide, because we realize that we're in a global world and that the farmers basically have to compete with a global market.
And from a GBBC standpoint, it is a Swiss nonprofit focusing on education, advocacy, and partnership with respect to blockchain technologies and also ancillary technologies that touch upon blockchain. But one thing is clear from our perspective is we're at a very unique period of human history where the digital economy and those who are digital, that entire world is accelerating and in some ways bifurcating against and away from the real world. And for us, that is a huge point of not only concern, but also opportunity. How do we as leaders around the world, entrepreneurs around the world, gather together and make sure that we design paradigms and institutions and technologies like blockchain that will enable us to collaborate, to be able to share the wealth and opportunities. We absolutely believe that blockchain offers a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity in the making. But we also want to make sure that we are conscious about our impact to society and communities around the world, and making sure that we offer up as many opportunities for those who may not easily gain access, as well as the education and the collaboration that is needed for this technology to really work and scale.
Excellent. Well, I think a very important way for us to get started is to define empathy. And I'd like to know from both of you as well, how does your organization think about empathy? What does it look like in your context? And maybe what does that not look like in your context?
For Heifer, empathy is embedded in our approach. We use an approach that's called values-based holistic community development approach. And this provides a framework for holistic community development. Basically, we want to build on the strengths and the values that are innate in any culture and society. And as we embark on our work, we realize that not all communities are the same. And we want to start the development process based on the values and the strengths, and also our planning process is based on the hopes that the communities they themselves have. And so this helps us to enable that we are developing our initiatives and our programs with the perspective of our participants.
And similarly, Heifer International, we're very grateful as an observing member of GBBC, and we work with NGOs, public sector government agencies, as well as some of the largest corporates in the world to make sure that we embed, as very much Elizabeth said, the ideals and values of caring for society and those around us, while we're also generating revenues and building businesses. Two are not mutually exclusive. And frankly, in this new world and opportunity that we have to build different frameworks in a digital economy, we absolutely need to make sure, and we work with many, many different groups around the world to collaborate, to figure out what that means at the local level. Because just because a framework works in one country or one village or one community does not necessarily mean that it translates into other places. And so we're very mindful when we think about empathy and building out technologies. What problem are we solving? Who is actually going to benefit from whatever it is that we are doing? And how do we make sure that people are not left behind, especially when the digital divide could worsen if we're not mindful of that? And so these are the things that we think about and very much embedded in the culture of our organization.
Thank you, Sandra. And I'm very glad you brought up cultural considerations. And so my next question's for Elizabeth. I've had the opportunity while preparing for this talk to read a little bit about the potential issues with smart contracts in African cultures who value empathy maybe more than some Western countries when it comes to contract renegotiations. And that there could be some potential issues that arise with creating contractual bottlenecks if those smart contracts aren't permanently programmed like we would learn about them here in the West. And so has Heifer International experienced any similar cultural challenges with your work in building a DAO, a Heifer DAO, and within any of your other projects exploring smart contract technology? And can you tell us more about those challenges?
So that's correct, as you're putting it. In the process of us building a DAO, we are building a governance system that's going to be a digital twin of a cooperative. And that's going to help address some of the bottlenecks so that we have cooperatives that are vibrant, that are functional, and that support the farmers to achieve our goal and their goal as well, get out of poverty and get to a living wage. So a cooperative is one of the key structures that we work with. This is a grouping of the farmers, which is usually a formally recognized structure. And it's a structure that has a leadership system and that makes decisions that are for the benefit of the members. It's designed to be a democratic organization where the members provide their input in the material decisions that are happening in the cooperative. And so the work that we're doing with the DAO is to build a digital twin that is going to facilitate this process, but also to ensure that the members are motivated to get involved, but that the leadership is also involving their members in the material decisions that are happening. And so to get this involvement and to deal with the issue where leadership is seen as more of authoritative than a participatory process, we are providing tokens that will provide a reward for the leadership for involving their members, but also for the members in getting involved in the processes. And that this should also be reflective when the cooperative is able to make more profits, and because of the participation that has been there from the members and the involvement that the leadership has undertaken in material decisions. So this is an example of where we need to take the cultural perspective into context as we are developing our blockchain solutions and also with other solutions.
Wow, really exciting things happening at Heifer. Sandra, my next question is for you. The Global Blockchain Business Council is a global goals partner with the United Nations. I understand that you've met recently to discuss numerous projects and initiatives going on at corporate, nonprofit, and academic levels. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you learned from these recent talks or some important takeaways that our audience can learn from?
Absolutely. But if you don't mind, I'm going to piggyback off of what Elizabeth just said about local, adaptation of technology and frameworks. We had a GBBC UNGA hackathon a couple years ago in collaboration with the World Food Program, where a startup won a project that was to digitize a cooperative farming group in Peru. And what was really interesting that came out of that, which by the way, unexpected, is not to just create a digitized version of helping the farmers get pricing and identification. What actually came out of it that was amazing is the identification process typically identified only the male farmer. So only one registrant actually had a space in their registration in the analog world. But because we had started moving it into the digital world, we actually included pretty much the entire family, but more particularly the wife. And that was important from a signaling perspective. Number one, identifying that actually it's usually an entire family that works on a farm. And number two, giving the rights to the woman and identifying the woman's name was actually maybe not legal yet, but significant because in this digital cooperative, she now had alongside her husband the same sort of status and recognition. And to me, these are small changes, but they're actually quite significant when you think about what the consequences of that could be in terms of what else she will be able to do when she's recognized as a rightful owner of land and also as a farmer. So that was one. And I think we're seeing these kinds of interesting micro use cases all over the world. And so leading into your question, Kathryn, answering that, from our recent UNGA gathering in New York, and just many of you are aware, if you're interested, the recordings are available on our YouTube channel. And we had one virtual day on the 16th of September, and we had an in-person live stream on the 17th of September. We covered the SDGs across all 17 And the topics range from healthcare to supply chain to financial inclusion and the environment. And as you can imagine, there are so many different companies working to solve different aspects of the SDG that matters most to them. And there are two takeaways that I have. One, many of us missed each other. It had been 2 years since many people had actually seen each other. And so the human contact, the human spirit, very much needs that contact and in person when it can be done. So that was one, and the energy that comes with that. Number two is the groundswell of activity around the world. We've only scratched the surface and really understanding how much activity with respect to blockchain and tokenization and different experiments that are going on. And at some point, and we're beginning to see that in certain industries, there is a tipping point where that is scaled and it is scalable. And I think we're getting there in certain aspects, but there's still a lot of experimentation being done. Pretty much, I would argue, maybe in every corner of the world at this point.
Wow. I completely agree with you on those things. And it sounds simple, but the ability for a tech developer to put themselves in the shoes of their user just can do wonders for accessibility for their users. So, Sandra, I once heard you say that blockchain requires collaboration and it opens the door for unity. How can technology like blockchain remove friction for individuals and businesses to increase positive social impact?
So I got into the space 10 years ago from a more crypto trading banking angle and have now evolved to seeing all the other use cases that are out there. And the thing that just keeps me in awe about blockchain technology is that it actually encourages and enables collaboration of stakeholders, different groups of people that may not talk to each other normally. Whether it's an NGO or a government agency talking to a large enterprise or a startup, the mass collaboration across borders is something that I find truly remarkable to this day. The potential of utilizing, if you've got internet access and your phone, to be able to transmit data, to transmit value, to be able to communicate is something that I think the infrastructure is leveraging in a way that we've just not seen before. And so when I think about how this is going to evolve, I really do want to make sure that we're all very cognizant as we're building what that means to other communities, other collaborators, and that we're always mindful of that. And I think that has a lot to do with empathy and building mindfulness into the technologies that we are constructing today, and making sure that the governance comes with that and the data privacy comes with that. There's a host of other topics, obviously.
Yes. And if we've been looking at blockchains for a while, you've probably heard the word financial inclusion. And so my next question for Elizabeth is around Heifer International working with the DM Association to promote financial inclusion. And I'd like to know, what does financial inclusion actually mean? And what does a world with accessibility to financial services look like?
So we can consider financial inclusion as when all people have access to financial services that are appropriate for their context, that are affordable, but that are also available in a timely manner. And one other aspect that we look at it from, especially at Heifer, is the income aspect, because data shows that the majority of the unbanked also report a lack of income. So they lack the income for them to engage in those financial services. And so we at Heifer tackle the problem from both angles, the angle of ensuring that the products are there that are appropriate, but then also that we support the communities that we work with for them to have the income to engage in the financial services. And so the ideal financial service would be the one that's affordable and relevant for the context. I'll give an example, like financing for a farming production activity. Some production activities like cocoa would take about 5 years for it to start for you to start getting some income from that investment, and an investment that's appropriate for that, but then that is also affordable. And that's one of the things that we also want to address. We want to give visibility for farmers, so that the perception that smallholder farmers are risky can be addressed, and that's something that blockchain can support in providing that visibility for the farmers. And our involvement in DM Association is to help in providing accessible financing, considering the opportunities that blockchain presents for reducing transaction costs and therefore making financial services more affordable for the communities, but then also addressing some of the issues that inhibit the communities that we work with from accessing financial services, such as issues of identity, which blockchain solutions can also address.
Yeah, thank you. For my last question, I want to bring it all together and ask, why are empathy and inclusion important factors for scaling a blockchain-based business or application? And maybe what are some practical tools or strategies for leaders to know about this? Sandra, do you want to kick us off on the last one?
Sure. So in the old days of building financial products or building technology products, software, you build it and they will come. That pretty much worked for most cases. It does not work for blockchain. It's community-based. It requires creating a community, whether you're launching a bunch of nodes to build out a layer 1 blockchain protocol, or whether you're a layer 2 solution that is aggregating lots of different blockchains together, or you're at the application level and you've got services that you're offering. I don't think it matters. The entire stack requires collaboration in a blockchain world. And it's largely at one level a utility and communal, which I think is fantastic, because it should be zero cost, low cost at that infrastructure level, so that the barriers of entry for anyone to be able to build on top of it should exist. And then at the application level, there could be a ton of businesses that can compete for services and the attention of whatever, retail or institutional, whoever your target customer base is, at that level. So in many ways, to me, the collaboration point is a built-in feature. I think the way we design it is important from a governance standpoint, meaning, do we give everyone a voice on how something is governed, or do we have a concentration of decision-making happening from small groups of people? And I think that's where a lot of the question marks remain about how democratized, how fair, and how these protocols will run.
To add on that, it is also important that as the systems and the solutions are evolving, they also take into account the context for the majority of the world's population, so that they can have access to these solutions. And I think that that's where the issue of empathy and inclusion also come in. That are we building solutions that are accessible to, for instance, smallholder farmers? And that's one of the areas that we have been focusing on. And as Sandra has been putting it, we realize that it takes an ecosystem for these solutions to scale. And for an ecosystem to develop, it needs collaboration from the different stakeholders. And so that's something that we are working on, and that's why we're also participating in the different forums where the different technologies, including blockchain, are evolving, to ensure that we work together to develop an ecosystem that can support the communities that we're working with. And at HEFA, we're also looking at developing a global agricultural information system, because we have seen that it's important for the farmers and the cooperatives to be digitally ready for them to access solutions like blockchain. And so we want to support them with access to that. And sometimes issues like a license can be inhibiting for a cooperative to afford a license, but if we get one license and have it accessible to a number of cooperatives, that just addresses that issue of cost by splitting that cost among a number of cooperatives. So I agree that collaboration is key in terms of scaling and also inclusion.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Sandra, I'm going to actually ask you to expand a little bit more with your previous response. I'd love to hear more about your global standards mapping initiative and where that tool is, and maybe your target audience and how global standards, and Elizabeth, if you have anything to add, please jump in, but how global standards can increase dialogue between regulators and government.
So 2 years ago, a group within the GBBC and predominantly the board raised the topic of the fact that so much activity was happening around the world, but yet did any one organization have any kind of handle on, from a policy, reg, legal, technical standpoint, where we were? What is the state of blockchain and digital assets? And that's the question we started with. And we went to the World Economic Forum and partnered with a group there, as well as a number of other partners, and created GSMI 1.0, which was launched last year. And what did we do? We simply took stock of what is going on around the world. And so we classified 185 jurisdictions and any legal regulatory work that had been done at the government level, and including central banks. We then mapped 34 technical standards and evaluated those. Then we also took stock of the nearly 400 blockchain consortia we could find listed around the world. That was the initial step, just map everything into one place and offer that as free access, open access to anyone who wants to take a look at it. We have had outreach from governments. We have had outreach from academic institutions. Some have even incorporated GSMI as a tool and a link into their actual blockchain course. It's proliferating. We just ask, obviously, that people think to contribute if they can. This is an ultimate crowd-sourced initiative. We have GSMI 2.0, which will be released in mid-November, so please look out for it. But if you go to the website now, the interactive map and the jurisdictions have been largely updated with the latest information. Obviously, certain countries move a little bit faster than others with respect to crypto and blockchain legislation, but we've tried to keep up to date as much as we can. And we have now over 100 global institutions and over 200 individuals who are volunteering, and I underscore volunteering, their time and effort to help us crowdsource this for the betterment of and availability to anyone and everyone. Where we need to go next is making it multilingual. We did translate it into a few Asian languages last year, but we definitely need to translate into more languages. And every year we do a little bit more, make the search functionality a little bit better. We're not quite there yet. It really started as a bootstrapped project, and now it's really grown. And so we are open access and welcome anyone who'd like to contribute in a meaningful way, because this is a living document, living website for those who are interested in learning more about where we are as a collective, because common language matters, common standards at a certain level matter, and we need to get there in order for us to be able to interact in a manner that is scalable and productive.
Yes. Well, thank you both for your insights today. How can our audience learn more about what you're working on or follow your journey as we leave here today?
I'll simply say follow me on Twitter, if you do Twitter, SRO London, and GBBC's handle, as well as our website, gbbccouncil.org. Thank you.
They can also find more on our work on our website, so HEFA's website, and also on our pages on LinkedIn as well.
Well, thank you so much. Have a great day. We appreciate you being here.
And appreciate the University of Arkansas team.
All right. So next, we are going to come back after a quick break with economics of tokenization. But first, we want you to play this next round of Two Truths and a Lie blockchain trivia. and we'll be back in a bit. Thanks.